Hello everyone, back to today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's second video, which will take us to around the 18th of January. And we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks. That gets into the second half of January, of course. And as usual, we'll have a look at CFSV2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks, beginning with the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations. And I'll get on for all of that for you very shortly. Just to say that the first video release day was the 5-day forecast. So that's a detailed look at weather for the coming 5 days, and it's going to be very unsettled and changeable. There will be spells of rain. At times it will be a little bit on the cold side in the north, but mild down in the south. See what's going on with the 5-day forecast when you've done with this video. So we're going to start off with the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast charts. So the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms. It just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. When the Arctic Oscillation is positive, we'll have low pressure over the pole and typically very cold conditions over the North Pole and the Arctic as well. Conversely, when the Arctic Oscillation is negative, we'll have high pressure up over the North Pole and the Arctic, and we will drive out the cold air down into the mid-latitudes because of that blocking area of high pressure. Well, at the moment, the Arctic Oscillation is in exceptionally positive territory. We're up here. This is kind of like neutral for the Arctic Oscillation just there. We are exceptionally positive with the AO right now, and expected to stay exceptionally positive up to the middle part of January. Into the second half of the month, we do have a bit of scatter. Some of these ensemble members are coming down closer to neutral. Most of them, though, even into the second half of January, are staying in quite solidly positive territory. This could be one of the most positive Arctic Oscillation Januaries that we've had for a very, very long time. We'll see where it comes in on the index. This could be one of the most positive AO Januaries that we've had for many years. So we've got the AO in very positive territory. The NAO is also in positive territory as well. So again, this is the same idea. The black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation. The red lines at the end where the NAO is being forecast to go. So again, just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. When the Arctic Oscillation is positive, you will have low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores. Combined with a positive AO, that will be a signal to strengthen the westerlies coming across the Atlantic, and at this time of year, that will be a mild signal. It's the opposite, though, when the NAO goes negative. When that happens, you'll tend to get higher pressure towards Iceland and lower pressure into the Azores, and of course, that can be a colder signal. Well, at the moment, the NAO is also in solidly positive territory, not quite as exceptionally positive as the AO is, but nevertheless, it's a really positive NAO that we've got there. And the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to stay in its positive phase up to and even beyond the middle of January. So both of the indexes remain in their positive states for the next couple of weeks, and so this tells us that we're likely to see zonality continuing. However, if we was to build up an area of high pressure from the mid-latitudes into the UK, then we could get colder from frost and fog, but those charts don't really indicate the chance of sort of Arctic or Siberian winds in the next couple of weeks anyway. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. So red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. So we're starting off milder than average at the moment, substantially so. Going to get a drop in the temperature later in the week before it lifts up into the start of the weekend, then falls back again as we get through to the end of the weekend. Next week, which is this period just here, it looks like the ensembles are close to average now, actually. So that is a bit of a reduction in the overall upper air temperature compared to what we were seeing yesterday. Not quite as mild next week as we was looking at yesterday. For the northern areas, next week could actually be quite chilly at times. In more extended range, the upper air temperatures do become milder again. That might be associated with building high pressure, though. Precipitation-wise, quite a wet and windy night to come tonight and into tomorrow. There will be more rain around. Then a couple of drier days later in the weekend and through to next week. Looks like we get a bit of an Atlantic onslaught, so plenty of wet and windy weather to come in the next week or so. A drying trend, though, as we look into the extended part of the ensemble. So this is taking us later into the third week of January and almost up to the final week of January. There's a drying trend there. At the same time, the upper air temperatures are lifting up while we've got this drying trend going on. But I think overall that could be associated with building high pressure. So although the upper air temperatures are lifting up there a little bit in the extended range, down on the surface it might actually be a little bit on the cold side under high pressure. We shall have to see about that. Then go through to the temperature anomaly. So from the 8th to the 16th of January, it's milder than average for England and Wales, in particular. Near normal, though, for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. Most parts of Europe looking very, very mild indeed. Precipitation anomalies are generally a little bit above average from the 8th to the 16th of January. It does look like quite a mild and also unsettled week to come. Excuse me. Temperature anomalies over in America are quite interesting. So for northern and northwestern parts of states, it looks very cold in week ahead from the 8th to the 16th of January. Really, really cold up in the northwestern part of the United States. Conversely, though, in the south and the east of the states, it actually looks very mild in the week ahead. So a proper northwest-south-east split here with the temperature anomaly in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies show that for southern and southwestern parts of the states, it's quite dry. Northwestern parts of the states, above average precipitation. A lot of that could be snow, of course, with such cold temperature anomalies as we have here. Then over on the eastern side of the states, it's also wetter than average, and with above average temperatures, it looks quite wet across that eastern parts of America, those east parts of America in the week ahead. This is how the GFS is looking for Saturday, then, back close to home. This will covered by the 5-day forecast, of course. Saturday will be rather wet and windy, particularly so in the northwest, drier, though, down in the south and the southeast. Into Sunday, we're into a cooler or even colder, showery mix, and then on Monday, wet and windy weather sweeps back in from off the Atlantic. Could be a little bit stormy from Monday into Tuesday. And then we go into rather a cold west-northwesterly, feeding in showers or longer spells of rain through the middle part of next week. They may start to turn a bit wintry up in the north. Excuse me. Into the end of next week, the next low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic. That's coming into quite cold air. So on the northern edge of that, there could be a little bit of snow for the northern parts of the country next week. That clears out of way across eastern Scotland, and we pull down a gale or even severe gale force northwesterly at the end of next week. This is a long way out, of course, Friday, 17th of January, but it does indicate the chance of some very active weather through the course of next week, with heavy rain, gale force winds, and the possibility of some snow, particularly so for northern parts of the country. Another southerly tracking low at day 10. That may be a little bit of snow risk even further south there sometime around day 10. Once that gets out of the way, though, here comes the building pressure moving up from the southwest, so that settles us down. We turn dry. The upper air temperatures with this will be quite mild, but down on the surface underneath that ridge, I think it will be turning increasingly frosty under that area of high pressure. Eventually, the high pressure is trying to move itself up towards Scandinavia. How successful that would be, have to wait and see. This is the 24th of January, so it's a really, really long way out. But, yeah, definitely with a suggestion here that into the second half of January, sometime from around 19th, 20th onwards, we could well be starting to see signs of high pressure building in. And if, as I said in yesterday's video, if that high pressure does get going for the final week to 10 days of January, we can forget any idea of beating the January CT record from 1916, the warm January CT record from 1916. Any high pressure building over the top of the UK or to our north, we can really forget that record. It will well and truly go out of window, that possibility. Because, of course, we'll have, excuse me again, we'll have overnight frost. And then we go through to the GM, and we're looking wet and windy, particularly in the northwest on Saturday. That rain clears away as we go through into Sunday, leaving us with a cool, rather cold, showery westerly wind. Then we turn a little bit stormy, perhaps through the early part of next week. Always quite mild, though, for GM as we move up towards day 10. That's how we're looking. So generally unsettled and pretty mild there with the GM right way up to day 10, Saturday 18th of January. ECMWF looking like that. So again, for the north and west, quite unsettled over the weekend. On Saturday, that rain gets out of the way. On Sunday, we're left with a colder westerly wind bringing wintry showers to the north and west. Bit stormy perhaps around Monday, Tuesday next week, particularly from the northwestern part of the country. Could be some gales or severe gales mixed in there. Low pressure continues to drive in from off the Atlantic through the second half next week. That looks quite stormy perhaps with this low pressure again moving in across England and Wales on Friday 17th of January. And day 10, that's how we're looking. Overall, very unsettled, even up to day 10, with further bouts of rain coming up. This is the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run at temeteo.com. Starting with today, wintry showers in the northwest Scotland, otherwise fair amount of dry weather, rain lurking down to the southwest, though that becomes heavy and widespread across England and Wales through this evening, and as it pushes north, there may be a little bit of snow over the Pennines and the Cumbrian Fells overnight tonight. Into tomorrow morning, some snow possible in the southern uplands. This rain, sleet, snow area moves out of the way through tomorrow afternoon, but more heavy rain is likely in the south tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. That could give a bit of a soaking through southern parts of England and Wales, possibly up into the Midlands overnight, Thursday into Friday. Friday will be a drier, calmer day, but by the end of it, we're going to be bringing the next batch of wet and windy weather into the far northwest. And then over the weekend, we've got this rain in the north and west on Saturday. That moves southwards and eastwards as we go through into Sunday. It becomes rather lighter as it does so. Following on behind, there will be wintry showers into the north and west. Early next week, stays unsettled. Here comes pretty stormy spell from Monday through to Tuesday. Heavy rain involved in that, and then back to wintry showers for Tuesday itself before another pulse of rain sweeps across the country late Tuesday and into Wednesday next week. Further wet weather in the south through the middle part of next week. Lots of rain to come if this is right. Into the end of next week, look at this, another mass of wet and windy weather piles in from the south and southwest at the end of next week. And so it goes on up to day 10, further showers, particularly so for northern and western parts of the country. This is the option that's on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 18th of January. This one the Icelandic Met Office, of course. 51 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles have low pressure out to our west and high pressure to our east at day 10. So still a little bit unsettled, a little bit showery, although the high pressure is starting to get a bit more influence, beginning to dry things out just a little bit perhaps by day 10. These are the options that we've got in 2 weeks' time, which gets us to the 23rd of January. We have 21 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure over and just to the east of us. And we're bringing in like an east-southeasterly with that. That could be dry, but also quite cold. 16 members of the ECM ensembles have low pressure to the north up here, high pressure to the south, and we're bringing in a milder west-southwesterly, mainly dry, but that's a milder situation. And then 14 with the high pressure centred right over the top of the country. That is going to be mostly dry, but also fairly cold scenario, and there would be a fair amount of frost likely with that one. So if we combine the 21 that we have just here with the 14 that we have just there, I think the ECM ensembles, as we move towards the final week of January, are favouring turning things drier, but also colder, with frost and fog becoming more likely. We should have to see about that. Finally, the CFSV2 for the next 4 weeks looks like this. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 8th to 14th of January. The coming week with above average heights to the south and below average heights to the north. So a bit changeable, a bit unsettled, and bringing in those west-southwesterly winds as well, particularly for northwest parts of the country, quite unsettled. Into week 2, which is the 15th, 21st of January, above average heights then strengthen a little bit to the east. Below average heights get pushed out into the middle of the Atlantic, turning drier, and you will think pretty mild, but down in the south and southeast there could be frost and fog from that scenario, I will think. Week 3 is the 22nd, 28th of January. The high pressure then is centred over the top of the UK. Low pressure is out to the west. That would definitely imply colder conditions for the last week of January from frost and fog. Again, not Arctic or Siberian, not Arctic northerlies, not Siberian easterlies, just dry but quite chilly with overnight frost probable. And then into week 4, all change again. This is the 29th of January to the 4th of February. Low pressure back in big time. In come the westerlies, and we're back into back over the coast again from the Atlantic, back into the deluge perhaps by the beginning of February. That's a long way out, of course. So it continues to be the situation that I've been talking about in videos over the past few days. Up to the middle part of January, we're unsettled, we're wet, we're windy. At times it will be cold in the north, risk of some snow at times across the northern parts of the country. Later on, as we get towards like days 7, 8, 9, 10, even down in the south, it could turn a little bit colder. Beyond that, though, as we move into the second half of January and then start heading towards the sort of final stages of the month, then we're looking at high pressure. Where that high pressure goes is going to be critical. If it sits over the country, we can expect to turn colder with frost and fog. If it sits to our south, let's say over France, then we can expect to stay mild, potentially a little bit unsettled. If it gets to Scandinavia, then we will be off and running into cold easterly winds. But of course, the thing with that is that we've got to get it to Scandinavia, and it's got to stick over Scandinavia, which with such a strong polar vortex and Atlantic as we have this year, high pressure is going to struggle at the moment to stick over Scandinavia. So all eyes remain on where that high pressure is going later in the month. To me, the charts we're seeing at the moment look like, since yesterday, they have reduced the possibility of getting a record-breaking mild January, of beating that January 1916 record. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I think the chances are reduced today on that, and even yesterday they look quite remote, really. It's a very long way out before the end of the month. There's a lot of weather to get through yet, and if we take the charts that we're seeing at the moment on face value, it looks like we will get at least a period of frosty nights sometime into the second half of the month, which will pretty much throw in the bin any chance of a new mild January temperature record. It may still happen, but to me, the charts we're seeing at the moment don't really support that idea, I have to say. But we shall see how things evolve over the coming days. Tomorrow we've got another week to 10-day video update with all of the regular features as well. I think we'll look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days as well tomorrow. So come back for that one then. But that's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.